Hey folks, it's Ozzy, and yes, there's an explanation for why I'm calling myself Ozzy and not Jordan in the podcast itself. But before we get to the podcast, I just wanted to say something real quick. You may have noticed that the episode released on Tuesday at 5 a.m. of the 21st of December and not the 20th of December, which is Monday at 5 a.m. And the reason for that is it's totally my fault. I totally slipped up. I didn't edit the podcast when I should have, and got a little lazy. So, but next time a new episode comes out, that's not going to happen. It will be on Mondays as usual. I just messed up my schedule and didn't, I just fucked up. So there's no excuse for that. As for next episode, the next episode is not going to be happening next week because New Year's is happening. Christmas is literally around the corner, and next week after that is New Year's. So yeah, we're going to be taking a break from that week to kind of reassess things. But in any case, we kind of talk about that at the end of the podcast as well. But yeah, enough talking. Let's just get into the podcast. Thanks for listening, and enjoy. God, that was bad timing. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Crooke and Candle podcast.
Hold on.
The mailman is at the door.
Yeah, pause it.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the happy belated Christmas / New Year's special of, special. It's nothing really special about it. It's another episode of the Crooke and Candle podcast. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Before we get started, just need to do all the plugs and stuff before we start. Just to remind all you lovely folks who are listening to this podcast, wherever it may be, whether it be on YouTube, whether it be on Facebook, whether it be on Twitter, or even on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or Stitcher, just to let you guys know all the links to all of our distributions as well as social media pages, so you can get in contact with us and send us your questions and whatnot. So if you want to be featured on an episode of the podcast with your questions or whatever, or nice things to say, that's where you can find us. And basically our usernames are pretty much the same: Crooke and Candle, Crooke with an E at the end. And, that's how you'll find us. So, and as always, the link to all those is in the bio link in the description of every podcast. So there you go. Anyways, I am Ozzy, and
I'm Trejen.
Yeah. And by the way, for those who are confused, for those who are regular listeners, in the last episode, I actually talked about changing my name.
Yep.
So, and I decided to change my name to Ozzy. In fact, you came up with the name.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you thought about it.
Well, I thought about it initially, but when you said it, that was like, oh, okay, maybe I should use that name.
I got a perfect name for you. Ozzy.
Yeah.
It seems fitting.
Yeah. So, and the more I thought about it, the more I was like, yeah, I think that works. It makes a lot of sense too.
Hey, I wanted to, because I was just on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I saw your post about changing your name.
Yeah.
And Diane.
Oh, she asked what the reason was?
She asked, what was the reasoning? I'd like to know. So why don't you give a quick answer? Well,
my quick answer to that, I want to say,
and you kind of said,
I kind of alluded to it in the post itself.
Yeah.
I didn't give a super in-depth reason. And I'm not really going to give that much of an in-depth reason. Mostly my reason for doing so was because the years I've been growing up as under my birth name, Jordan Jennings, I've had a lot of baggage to deal with, a lot of bad things. Me personally, as the person I was growing up, looking at that, I just, whenever I'm calling, under my birth name, whenever I hear my name, it's just, I associate my name or my birth name with who I was. Mm-hmm. And who I was is not really who I am now. And I forget, I think you said it, but wasn't it like the Spartans or whatever?
Well, yeah, actually, that's why I took my own name as well, Trejen, because a long time ago, my father had talked to me about kind of ancient cultures.
Yeah.
And the idea that, when you're born, your parents name you.
Right.
But at a certain point, you grow up into an adult,
Yeah.
a man, say, and you, based on who you've become, you're no longer the child. You're no longer the adolescent. You're now grown, and you have things that you want to accomplish in your life, your destiny and all that. So you choose a name for yourself. You take a different name. And I mean, popes take names, when they're named something, but then they become pope and they choose a new name. And so it's kind of like, that's how I always associated, and especially because I always went by nicknames. Jinx, JJ,
Yeah.
Trey J, way back like high school. I used that for a little while, but Priest, etc. I've always had nicknames, but it wasn't really until like Portland when I moved in 2014, and exactly the same thing was happening with me. I had been, and I was 40 already,
Yeah.
but I that first 40 years of my life, I was this person. And it got to a point, especially when I moved to Portland, where I was like, you know what? I'm changing who I am for good. I want to be this different person. I want to accomplish more. I want to be more positive about life and the way I approach life. And, I want to give to people the benefit of my experience, etc. And so Trejen came up for me, and I was like, yeah, Trejen. And then Antaeus, which derives from ancient Greek and where you get the word anti. One, it was trying to think of, because it was an African god that couldn't be defeated until Hercules, as long as his feet were planted on the ground.
Right.
And Hercules was able to lift him up, and so he defeated him. But Antaeus meant like to stand against. And the reason I chose that last name, and it falls in line where you're using the last name as well,
Yeah.
is that I do stand against the way I was raised and what I was told I was supposed to be and who I was supposed to be.
Right.
And the things that other people wanted for me or envisioned for me, I did not want it. And so I stood against that to become my own person. And that's where Antaeus comes from. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I decided to change my last name to Antaeus as well, just because the way when you described what the name was, like I'm like, yeah, I think that fits for me too. And you even suggested, look, why don't you change your last name to Antaeus? So I'm like, all right, sure. I just need to find a good first name, and then Ozzy came up. So
Yeah, and I mean, just for those out there, I mean, maybe you guys think it's a little weird, but
the Prince of Darkness.
yeah, no, well, I mean, but the whole first name, last name to that's most people don't do that.
Right. No,
You know?
it's very abnormal. Like, in fact, it was kind of funny. Like, in fact, I guess this kind of goes into how our weeks went. My week went fine, but yeah, like the last day before the weekend hit, I actually decided to gather the courage to actually like introduce myself as Ozzy for the first time, and it felt kind of odd. It felt odd because it's like that's not what I've been called all this time.
Ozzy Oddborn.
Ozzy Oddborn, biting the head of a bat.
Yeah, but people normally when you can even say, well, because people ask me about my name all the time.
Sure.
Because they don't know how to pronounce it.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Trejen. And to me, it's like you say it the way it looks, Trejen.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm always getting people asking, how do you say your name? And I'll say Trejen, and then they'll be like, and they'll have my card, and they'll be like, and yeah,
Yes.
and then what's that, and I'll explain it, and I'll say, I was born Jason Jamal Jennings, but I've always felt very different from people. I've lived my life in a different way than most people do, and kind of like I've never got to see the movie. Was it We Will Rock You? It's the Queen movie.
Oh, I think that's the one.
Is that
I think so.
okay?
I'm pretty sure that's the.
But I see this little scene where he comes back.
Yeah, he changes his name.
home.
He changes his name from what, Farouk, or something like that.
And his parents were like, "Oh, I see you've changed your name," and he said something like, "Well, it wasn't doing anything for me anyways, so Freddie works and Mercury works too." So,
it's a cool name.
Yeah,
too.
yeah, and I mean, there's a long, like I love reading, and a lot of times writers will have their.
I just spilled coffee on myself like an idiot. Sorry,
but a lot of writers will have a pen name. Even Mark Twain, that wasn't his name.
Yeah, that's true.
But everyone knows Mark Twain. So, there's a rich history in becoming your own person and choosing your own name for yourself, especially if you can figure out something that fits. So, and like I said, for you to change not only your first but your last, and it's the name that I chose as well, it's not that weird. Me and you get along fantastically.
We have a good relationship, and considering like the relationships I've had with other people in my family, there's two individuals I could say, but I'm not going to. You know exactly who I'm talking about. Like this year like was fucking awful, and it sucks having to deal with all this baggage. And so my main, to get back to what my explanation, the main reason I changed my name was just simply to take control. Some people see like changing your name because I think even what was it, Honey, because she commented and she said something along the lines of like, I forget what she said, but I think she kind of alluded to the idea that she was like running away from her past or something like that. And I'm like, I'm not trying to run away from my past. In fact, I think that's a very uncharitable way to look at it.
You're trying to run into your future.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to move on.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. So by changing my name and my first and last name, like it comes down to taking control and moving on from the past and going, no, I'm going to embrace my future. In fact, there was a quote from Fight Club, because Fight Club is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
And that movie's so good. It's just the amount of quotes you can get out of that and remember. It's just so memorable of a movie. But there was when I changed my name officially, or officially, it's legally still the same, but officially in my mind, it's Ozzy and Trejen. I immediately thought. In fact, this was when I was telling people at work my new name, and and I immediately thought of the scene where he's like, "If you wake up," the narrator, like, if you go to a different place,
if you wake up in a different place, a different time, can you be a different person?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and it's like, and I think you can. I think.
Well, that's the great thing of the reason lots of people move. Again, even as a creative person, because it's not normal, quote unquote. Most people think in terms of, go to school, go get a job, start at the bottom, work your way up. Maybe one day you can buy yourself a house.
Right.
That's kind of get a paycheck from someone. You get a job that has a good insurance package. That's the way most people think of living.
Yeah.
And so to grow up somewhere and eventually say, you know what, I want to be an entrepreneur, or I want to be a dancer, or a painter, or a writer. You're going to, like we've talked about this before, you're going to catch a lot of resistance from people. People want to hold you in a place that makes them comfortable. They want you to be a person that makes them comfortable. And by, abandoning that and choosing to live a different way, it highlights for them the things that they used to want to do but gave up on.
Yeah.
And so you'll catch a lot of heat, and that's why a lot of people will move, especially if they're a creative person, and they're raised in a town or a city where there's not a lot of creative diversity, and they'll be like, you know what, I'm getting out of here.
Yeah.
And so once they get off that plane and they meet their first people from whatever job they get, to pay the bills, and they go to, parties, when people get introduced to them, you get to speak who you want to be.
Yeah.
You know, in your town, you know, you say I'm a writer, and everyone, you're not a writer, you know, or I'm an actor. Oh, you're not an actor. You just, blah, blah. It'll never happen. And then you go someplace else and you meet people and you say, I'm an actor or I'm a writer. And they go, really? So cool. Tell me about it. And you have I moved out here because I wasn't getting the support, and et cetera, et cetera. So you do get to choose who you want to be, you know, but a lot of times you do have to move away from where you're from to be this new person. So that actually does line up. And as a matter of fact, I'd say that whole movie, Fight Club in general, the reason why I think it resonated with so many people was because a writer,
Chuck Palahniuk.
Yeah. He was able to write things down that people think about all the time, but don't have the balls to say it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why it really resonates with a lot of people. But yeah. I congratulate you on your new name. That's rad, dude.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to the future, and you know, and that's the thing. It's like I didn't just change my name just for the sake of it aesthetically. It's like, no, I really do want to change.
There's a lot of thought that went into it.
Yeah, and in fact, that's the thing. When I introduced myself as Ozzy for the first time, like that was really hard to do because it was almost like I'm trying to let go of my old self.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it felt like. So, and I know it's still going to be awkward. Like I know I'm going to go into work tomorrow. Or no, wait, what day is it today?
It's
Sunday,
yeah.
Yeah. So tomorrow I'll go into work, and you know, I'm pretty sure I'm going to hear people call me Ozzy, and it's still going to feel weird. And some people maybe even ask me about it, but you know, it is what it is, man. I'm moving forward.
Well, the great thing is if anyone's asking you about it, don't give them too much of an explanation.
Sure.
Just say, you know, I got a podcast. Check out our newest episode, Ep.8. We're actually talk about it a little bit. Maybe they'll give it a listen.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's perfect time to segue to the first topic of the podcast. And in fact, it actually has something to do with something that happened to me recently. So I've mentioned this before. I do this show on YouTube, YouTube series of videos where I do analytical videos where I analyze and review old anime.
Anime Hole.
Anime Hole. Yes,
is
that's what it's called. And so I did this one video on Akira, and in fact, I was really proud of that video.
Now, Akira is an animated video. It came out in 1988.
Yeah, so and it's one of the most. If you've seen,
it's iconic.
It's an iconic film for sure. If you've heard about anime, you've heard about Akira. You've heard that name thrown around a lot. You know, I did a video on it, and it was one of my most proudest videos I did because it was, and that's the thing. I was proud of it for two reasons. One is because I got to tell people what it was like for people to experience that from your perspective, because I actually interviewed you for the video, and I actually liked that segment.
Yeah, 89 I got to see it.
Yeah, you got to tell your story, and it was really good. And just overall, I like that video just because I did a deep dive. I did a real deep dive, and because that was the thing about that video. And believe me, I'm gonna get to my point, but like the thing about that video that I like is that I got to because I knew initially going to that review I was going to there was definitely going to be some criticisms I was going to give to the film, and I remember even talking to you about it because you really love Akira, and that's the thing, I do too, but I don't think it's perfect, and I made sure to explain myself in the video. But it was really hard to actually write that script.
I remember you took quite a long time.
It took a long time. It took months because I had to really, really think about how I wanted to write that script and criticize the work, because I didn't want to piss people off necessarily.
It was a constructive.
I wanted to be constructive, and I wanted to let people know that I'm not just talking shit about it. That's not my goal. My goal is to like look at it from a modern context and how it fits into the anime landscape today and whether it holds up or not. And by the end of it, I kind of said, yeah, it does hold up, just maybe not in the ways some people may remember it, you know. Anyways, long story short, I worked really hard on that video. It came out, didn't do gangbusters, but my subscriber base was happy with it, and I got a lot of good comments. And 4 months later, the video got blocked.
Now this just happened
It happened like earlier in the week.
a couple of days ago.
Yeah, like literally I woke up, I think it was Wednesday morning. I woke up and I got a notification from my email from YouTube, and they're like, we just want you to know that your Akira review got blocked worldwide. And I'm like, what the fuck happened? So now what happened was I used the soundtrack from the film Akira, which is also pretty iconic in its own way, because it's definitely a memorable soundtrack. Just everything about that film is iconic. Like just the soundtrack, the animation, the characters, everything about it, just the art design, it's very iconic. And what happened was in the video, I ended up like introducing the film, and then I edited together some footage of the film. And there's that one song where it goes dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
Ding. So that, again, if you've watched the movie, you know what that sounds like. So I edited that together, and it was like 10 seconds maybe worth of the song unedited. But it was the whole film, the whole review, the whole video was fair use. It was constructive. It was under the context of a review, and it was transformative. So it shouldn't have gotten blocked worldwide, but it did. And it really made me deflated. And the thing is that the reason I felt so deflated was because I spent all these months on the video, just pre-production, then the production of it, like recording the dialogue, doing the on-screen segments, assembling the footage, sourcing the footage, getting the fucking interviews with what's his name, Kazuhiro Otomo, and actually like writing notes and all this stuff. Like I did a lot of work, and then just for it to go up for 4 months, only get like 150 views at least. I want to say that's how much it got. And then it just gets blocked, removed like that.
And that's why we're actually bringing up the whole YouTube thing, because you actually exist in it on YouTube. You've been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
And I actually asked you a couple days ago when you told me what had happened. I said, because I'm trying to figure it out.
Right.
And I'm like, is it that you don't have enough subscribers that they would do that to you?
No.
Because I've seen other channels.
Right.
And this is just for people that are doing content on YouTube.
Right.
I think a lot of creatives have run into this.
Right.
Where other people create something and you do something similar, and theirs stay up and yours gets taken down. And I was asking about that. And you mentioned something about the way you make videos, though. You don't want to make it bland.
Yeah,
because there's all these guidelines.
Unique.
There's guidelines that you have to fit into.
Here's the thing: there are other people that do the kind of content I've been doing as well, under the realm of anime content on the internet, and that's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that inherently. Actually, I don't know what the fuck I was saying. Like, there are other people that do anime content as well, and they manage to stay up. Because they edit their videos in such a way that it tricks the content ID system. Really, here's the thing: the reason my video went down was simple. It was because of content ID is broken. That's the reason why. Because here's the thing. In fact, there was another scenario that happened recently. This guy, totally not Mark. He does a lot of videos related to like Dragon Ball Z and One Piece and stuff like that, and a lot of his videos are constructive. Now, he didn't really edit the footage too heavily to try to obscure it or make it or to trick the content ID system. But he used it under fair use. The way he used it was fair use. Toei Animation, one day, for these videos have been up for years, and by the way, there are plenty of clips you can find of these shows unedited. Like, there's still episodes of Dragon Ball Super coming out as they are coming out, and they're being uploaded in their entirety to YouTube as is. And those aren't getting taken down for some reason. Why? Don't fucking know. I have no idea. But then this guy, he has over 3 years of work like that gone, blocked, all these videos blocked. And I didn't even know this, but this guy was doing well enough that he actually was able to employ people. He has an LLC basically to employ people as as employees to help edit and help produce the videos and all that stuff. So watching his videos, like, I felt so bad for the guy, because like there was like a follow-up video he did where he was getting all this support from like PewDiePie and Gigook and the Anime Man, all pretty relevant people on YouTube, and being like, dude, this is bullshit, like. So, in fact, here's how broken it is. Like, PewDiePie did a video talking about it, and he actually mentioned, like, dude, I made my own music for my videos, and I posted a video, and Content ID is so broken. Literally, the content I made for my own video got me copyright struck.
But he made
the shit himself. So it's like Content ID is just broken, and it's easy to abuse, and it just makes no sense at all. And in fact, one of the things I've heard too when it comes to anime content, in fact, I believed this for a while, because in Japan, fair use is very different. Fair use is very different over there. I believe their fair use, the way it works is like, if it's used for like educational purposes only, or within an exhibition type thing, I don't know, then it's okay. But stuff like YouTube shit, or like you're using footage of said anime and whatnot for review on YouTube, like that, I guess they don't, in Japan, that wouldn't be okay. But here's the thing. In fact, I have a video that I want to play for you. I'm only going to play like a minute or two of this, because there's this guy, Hogue Law, who actually, because I was actually wondering about that. I'm like, wait, that doesn't make sense to me. How can a Japanese company take down videos under their fair use law, but apply it to Americans or people from other countries who have very different laws? Wouldn't it make sense for them to go through their judiciary system or law system to apply that fairly within those countries? And turns out that is true. Apparently what Toei is doing is not actually legal. In fact, I'm going to play some of this footage. Give me 1 second. All right, so the video I'm going to partially play. I'm not going to play the whole thing because it's like 30 minutes long, but the bit I wanted to bring up was this part of his video. Hogue Law's video on Totally Not Mark's Toei takedowns. This guy is really good. He explains a lot of like copyright law when it comes to like internet stuff, especially when it comes to YouTube. And he's been very insightful. Like, in fact, his stuff is really good. I definitely would recommend watching it. Hogue Law on YouTube. And I'm just going to play this one segment from the video. And it's like a minute or two. So let's play it.
There is no such thing as international copyright, which the U.S. Copyright Office is very happy to tell you if you go and look up these kinds of things. There is no such thing as an international copyright, they say, that will automatically protect an author's writings throughout the world. Protection against unauthorized use in a particular country depends on what? Depends on the national laws of that country. So there are conventions. You might hear reference to Berne. You might hear reference to UCC, or just general World Intellectual Property Organizations, or even World Trade Organizations, depending on what you are looking up. And this is an enormously complicated area of law. So don't get lost in the weeds there. If you have an issue, as I say at the end of all my videos here in Virtual Legality, contact your own counsel. But it certainly isn't the case that I'm protected where I live means I can enforce my jurisdiction's laws on everybody across the globe. That is not the way. In fact, the U.S. Copyright Office here talks to folks about, hey, if you want your copyright of a U.S. work protected elsewhere, what do you have to worry about? It says if you seek copyright protection for your U.S. work in another country, it is important to determine the points of attachment under the country's copyright system. Will they protect you? And that's what those treaties and conventions are for. If possible, do this work before your work is published anywhere, because protection may depend on facts existing at the time that you publish. The scope of protection available in that country, the other jurisdiction, will then turn on the substantive provisions available under that country's law and practice. Keep in mind, some countries offer little or no copyright protection to foreign works. These are conversations that happen all the time with cross-border transactions, whether it's in my neck of the woods in mergers and acquisitions or just publishing a book that you wish to go out elsewhere. The internet creates problems for all of this, and copyright and intellectual property in general hasn't solved them. But what we do know is the fact that Japanese law might not allow for the use case that Totally Not Mark wants doesn't mean that that Japanese company can go and say he can't put it out anywhere in the world. That is not how this works.
And that's so
interesting.
so basically what he said there is what Toei did to hell in my case, I forget who did it, but this it was like some Japanese company that owns the license to the song I used in my video. They don't have the right to take my video down because according to their laws, their fair use laws, it does not apply to America, whereas where I live. So if legally they wanted to take it down, they would have to go through our judiciary system and then file a complaint and then go through our laws. But it probably wouldn't work out for them because, well, that's not how American fair use laws work. Because basically what I'm doing is transformative, and they would have to prove that it's not transformative, but I'm pretty sure they wouldn't be able to.
And they would have to spend a bunch of money.
But here's the thing. So you may be wondering, well, then what's the problem? If they can't legally do this, why are they still doing it? Well, YouTube's the problem. The content ID has been a problem for years, man. It's been a big of a situation when it comes to YouTube, and I've been seeing this stuff happen for years. And so, in fact, that's why I was like super happy to listen to Hogue Law say what he said, because I was like wondering like why that happens. And so it really just comes down to this. It's like the way content ID works on YouTube. It's so broken, because that's the thing, even in their like FAQ, like it acknowledges what Hogue Law actually said, that it even says like in their FAQ, because I think he even pulls it up in the video, but he like points out like even YouTube is aware that if a claimant wants to file a claim, they have to be aware of their own laws versus how laws overseas work. But that's not what's going on. They're just these fucking companies from abroad, some dude in an office in a cubicle looking through YouTube videos with the words Akira in it. They don't care if it meets fair use law in America, because they don't care. They just want it down, because as far as they're concerned, they just want to be the guys that have the content.
And they know they can use this broken system to take
it down. Exactly. And there's not much I can do. In fact, I was talking to people on a Discord I'm a part of, like, about it, and they're like, well, why don't you just file an appeal? And I'm like, well, I could, but there's a very big chance they'll fucking file another claim again and take it down again, because I've seen that happen too. Where it's like dude, I've re-edited videos just to get them up, and like I would edit out a certain part of the video, but then it would get another claim filed on it for a different part of the video. It makes content ID is just broken on YouTube. And so the point I wanted to make with this, in fact, the note I put down on the thing was, is YouTube's copyright content ID system stifling creativity? And I think so. I think it is, because in fact, I've seen it with certain channels. Like there were certain channels that did content of a similar nature, and it was much more creative and much more risky in the way they did it, but it was much more fun because of it. And it felt more personable. But then eventually over time, as the content ID system got more and more busted, these videos started to become more bland and sterile, and they didn't take as much chances. They did everything they could to avoid that as much as possible. So, but in the end, in the result, it made these videos feel weak and bland and not really.
Which is interesting. Like, as you're sitting here talking about it, I'm thinking of Big Brother from 1984.
Yeah.
And you know, to the point where you're a creative, creating content for YouTube, but you start realizing Big Brother's watching.
Yep.
So I can't do this, and I can't. And again, some like you got taken down for 10 seconds of a song.
Yeah.
which is
Like, straight
incredible.
up. It's
You know, and the thing is too, because it's not. I wouldn't. I wanted to ask you about this. As a creative, yet we were talking about stifling creativity. Besides it, in order for you to put something up, you have to be less creative, more bland.
yeah.
To get by. The experience of actually having your stuff taken down after so much work, how did that like affect you like psychologically?
Dude, I was depressed. I was pretty depressed when I saw. In fact, it actually crossed my mind where I was like, I might just quit doing the anime hole stuff, because if that's kind of the risk I'm going to, because that's the thing. It's like, had the Akira video say got like 10,000 views or 150,000 views or whatever, I wouldn't have minded it as much. But because it only got a small amount of views,
Because you want people to see what you did.
I want people to see my content. So, the fact that it only got that amount of views, and here's the thing, I want to make it very clear. It's not about money. It's not even about trying to make the most views. I want views. Don't get it twisted. I think that's a thing that everyone aspires to if they're trying to be a content creator on YouTube. They want to get those views. They want to find out those tricks and things they can do to boost viewership and all the stuff, SEO tags, all that, thumbnails, how to do your thumbnails right, tiling your description so it can pop out more at the viewer, stuff like that. These are things I've had to learn over the years. So it sucks when I apply a lot of these things and it doesn't even matter. Like in fact, I said it before, like that video I did, like that took months. And so to see it after 4 months just finally get taken down, completely censored from the internet so no one can see it. It's like, it might as well have not even existed.
And this is the thing, because like, again, I'm a painter.
Yeah.
I think, you, in the art world, you can, as long as it's art, you could get away with it. There's not much that a person could paint and then it starts getting shown at a gallery.
Right.
There would have to be such an uproar amongst the public,
Right.
to get it quote unquote censored. And then just, if I was the painter and it was an important piece of work that I created and it meant a ton to me, getting it censored to where they're like, we don't want any photos of this thing, it's just blackballed.
Right.
That would be incredibly devastating, but it's so rare.
Yeah. That is.
So it's that's why I was bringing up the psychological element to it, because again, talking about does and can YouTube stifle creativity? Absolutely, because it's so easy for someone who creates something for consumption on YouTube. Mm-hmm. You want people to watch it. I watch YouTube all the time.
Yeah.
I'll watch videos on ancient Egypt or whatever, to put all that work into it and for it to be so easily taken down. Mm-hmm. Is, I would think, incredibly frustrating.
Oh, dude, there are plenty of videos you could find of people where that's happened to them, and I could see it on their faces and it's the same feeling I had, because that's the thing. It's like, in fact, I hate it when people try to like discredit YouTubers by going, YouTube's not a job, get a real job. It's like, listen, you don't fucking get it. Like, as a guy who's done video editing for years and have learned the craft to get better and better and better, I can assure you, especially as a solo creator who's done most of my stuff myself, like that anime hole video, that took months of man hours of my own time and my own money even. I put money into that, like, just to make that video possible. So when I have all this work that I put in, whether, like production, pre-production, writing the script, note taking, doing all this research that I didn't even need to do, but I did because I wanted to be thorough. And then buying the fucking collector's edition box set of the manga to read through that, just so I can write notes for that, and then just all this shit just to doing the interview with you, just doing everything, editing the video, dialogue, all that stuff. That's a lot of work. A lot. So to have all that taken down, and here's the thing: it's like you mentioned, if you put out a painting and all these people got in an uproar and wanted to censor it, to me, I would say that's a better fate.
Yeah,
than what I dealt with, which is, and this is the thing that devastates a lot of people on YouTube, where it's like a lot of times these videos don't get taken down because people are pissed. It's because some bot or some dude in a cubicle looked up your video, or maybe not even looked up your video. They used like some algorithm bot thing to just auto flag videos and block them, just to take them down. And knowing that my video got taken down just like that, no debate, no nothing, just it's gone, and there's nothing you can do about it. Or, well, I could do something about it. I could appeal it, but I don't want to. I shouldn't even have to go through that. That's a waste of time. You know, and it's like to know that happened. To me, I think that's worse, and it because really, here's the thing: it's like I could go through the effort of appealing the video, and I might even get it appealed. I might be able to get it back up, but the thing is, that would be a waste of my time. And it's like in fact, that's why a lot of creators nowadays, they do everything they can to avoid that in the first place, because it's a waste of fucking time and energy. And even then, when you appeal the video, a lot of times it doesn't go up for a while. It'll take like, I think it takes like 60 days for the person who filed the claim to appeal or to respond to the appeal request. And sometimes these companies will take 60 days. So that's 2 months of waiting for them to let go. And if they don't answer, the video will go back up. Why the fuck do I want to do that? That is such a waste of time. And there's also the possibility where they might go, no, fuck you, we're taking your shit down again.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, is YouTube's content ID stifling creativity? Yeah, and you see it in the videos. You see it in the content that's being made today, especially when it comes to reviewing content like movies, or, you know, cartoons or books or whatever. Well, books maybe less so because it's a little bit different the way it works out. But even then, like, especially when it comes to stuff with footage and stuff like that, it's like, you know, it's very hard. It's very, and that's the thing. It's like, yeah, some people have been able to do it right. And like guys like Critical Drinker, like the way he does his videos, perfect for him. Like, it makes sense. The way he does it, it's very concise, it's quick, it's to the point, gets his points across. Sometimes his videos go longer, but for the most part, most of his videos are like 10 to 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. And the way he edits the videos are great, but that's not necessarily how I want to do my stuff. Like, I like to go super in depth with my content, and that means I have to use a lot of footage, and I have to, you know, so I don't know. It's just, it's a frustrating experience for sure.
Yeah, I could see it. That is, yeah, I outside of our third gen where we, you know, can archive videos on YouTube that we might do. Yeah, I don't really do YouTube so much, but I could understand the absolute frustration that creatives have to go through dealing with that platform. And I know there's other platforms, but it just seems that YouTube's kind of got the stranglehold on. Yeah,
that's the thing. YouTube is the competition when it comes to like videos on demand. Like, just, you know, because that's the thing. Like, we have new platforms like Odyssey and Rumble and BitChute and all these other sites. In fact, one of the first suggestions I remember hearing from people I was talking to about it's like, well, dude, just upload your vids to fucking Odyssey. And it's like, okay, yeah, I do have an account and I will do that. But I'm not doing that in the hopes of going viral on Odyssey, because no one's using those platforms like that currently.
Yeah, I don't.
That's just
there's no
because there's not that much traffic. There's not, or if there are people that are going there, it's for one purpose only. If a video goes down on YouTube, they go to the account, the backup account on Odyssey to then see that video again, or to see that video if it went down on YouTube.
Yeah, jump through hoops.
Yeah. It's a fucking. In fact, most people use Odyssey as a archival site. That's basically what it is currently. It's yes, it's a good site. I think if there's any site to pull through, Odyssey I think would be the one, because so far it's the best out of all the ones I've tried. BitChute kind of fell down a fucking. They are dealing with their own issues, and it's kind of a janky site. But like Odyssey's pretty good. But even then, Odyssey still has the issue of like trying to, actually equal or rival Google, basically, because YouTube is a Google company.
Yeah.
And Google is a fucking multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yeah.
Basically, that has their fingers in a lot of pots right now.
Yeah.
And it's like it's hard to beat them.
And there's always the fear that another platform, if it was getting big, would get bought out by Google.
Yeah, possibly. That's another potential thing to happen too. And I don't know. So I don't know.
So you creatives out there, mind your P's and Q's.
Yeah, mind your P's and Q's. Always do your research. Know what you can do. But yeah, like it's a dangerous world out there. So yeah, be careful. Watch your step.
Well, going on to our next
topic,
and it just kind of brought it up, and it's something I randomly, as we were getting ready for this episode, I was thinking of something to talk about.
Yeah,
and I kind of got on this idea of like how good can a creative get? How good can an artist get? Is it something that they can put in a good work ethic to get better and better and raise their art to a high level? And is it true that some people, because as I was growing up, drawing was I put in my 10,000 hours, but it was something that kind of came natural to me.
Sure.
And I always felt like for the longest time people would say, "Oh, you're blessed," and all this, and I would downplay it because I actually felt like, not like a fraud, but I would see how hard it was for other people to draw.
Right.
And I could like look at a piece of paper and just kind of stare at it and tilt my head left and right, and my brain starts doing its thing, and then I just kind of start sketching, and it's similar. I mean, it's drawing, so it's different than sculpting, but the sculptor Michelangelo kind of looked at it like, well, the sculpture's, in the marble. I just got to take pieces off to expose it. And so for me, it wasn't exactly that, but it was a lot of times I could just kind of stare at a piece of paper, and it seemed almost like I could project onto the paper what I wanted to draw, and then it felt like I was almost tracing. And so
You're talking like a song from The Lion King. Stop that. It makes no sense.
But yeah, I mean, but we were, I brought it up. I'm like, do you think that, there's a difference with creative people, and that some people are going to have an easier time at it naturally? And if someone else doesn't have that natural talent or ability, can they raise themselves up to where they can get at that level?
Yeah. That's the thing. It's a very complicated topic because I think because there's an unfortunate fact of life. I think that it's very hard for some people to want to grasp onto because some people don't want to admit that it's true. But I do believe that there's definitely a point where, because that's the thing. It's like there are definitely some people that, and I've seen this happen with certain people where there's people I've known who have drawn for years. I was doing art and drawing and all that stuff, and I was getting better and better and better. And then there's another guy I know who's drawing all the time too, but they're not getting better at all. Like they're staying the same. And I think there is a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Nuances when it comes to these kind of topics, because I think there's a lot of things that go into it. Your mental state, how much you're willing to learn and put in the work, to get better and stuff like that. Because sometimes the fact of the matter is, like, for example, like say if you're trying to draw like the human anatomy, for example, like I've gotten pretty decent at doing human figures and figuring how to do that. But that's because I studied the human anatomy and actually looked at like books where it's like you see the muscles and the differences between the male body and the female body, and how they're structured, and just kind of the way certain muscles flex and contort based on how the skeleton is positioned and all that kind of stuff. And just by practicing that over and over, yeah, I got better. But it also can come down to, I feel that just some people just might not have the it, so to speak. The it factor. Like, because there are definitely some people where it's like they can learn everything and just for some reason they are not getting better. And like, for example, let's say athletics. And because I actually mentioned this earlier before we were talking about this on the podcast. Let's say, I don't know, like people want to get into the NBA or boxing or whatever. The unfortunate, I'll just speak about something I know very well. So MMA. There are a lot of people that become professionals in mixed martial arts, then go to the UFC or whatever. In fact, there are people that just, they are very good and they've trained all their life, and that's all they've known is fighting. Learning how to grapple, learning how to submit people, learning how to punch people through their fucking skulls and kick their legs out and all this stuff, snapping bones and, breaking livers and all that kind of stuff, and they might even rise through the ranks. They might even get to be a contender for the title. But then something happens where they just meet someone way better than them and they get destroyed. And then they keep on getting destroyed by better and better talent. And they just never get to that point. And I think the reality is that there are definitely people that can aspire, but there's a reality that not everyone's going to make it. Not everyone's going to, succeed where other people will.
Well, I agree with you on part of that.
Okay.
My agreement is, again, you kind of mentioned it, that people, they might put in a certain amount of effort and get better, and that they just don't have the it factor. I think, like, when I think of the it factor, first off, you have to like define what the it factor is.
It's very vague.
Well, yeah, but I would say, I'm like, okay, the it factor in a lot of cases is a person who, as they're studying the thing that they love and enjoy, whether it's art or basketball or tennis or whatever, dance, whatever, they're able to their mental state, the way that they're able to learn from every experience, and not only that, be able to critique themselves to realize what their weaknesses are so that they can work at it. It's to me, the it factor has a lot more to do with a mindset. And that's why I think there's certain people that can, they're interested in something and they get to a certain point. As a matter of fact, I'm getting back into playing guitar, and I was watching a video, and the video was, don't get stuck in the Hendrix hole. And so the guy's got a Fender Stratocaster and he's playing, and it sounds like Jimi Hendrix.
Sure.
And so he's talking about that. He's like, a lot of people will get stuck because they figure out what he's doing, and it sounds awesome.
Sure.
So they do that, and they do that, and they do, and now they're just, it's fun for them, and they can play it for people, but that's it. Yeah. They can't get out of that cage of their own making to be able to play anything else, which means they're never going to grow outside of the thing that they know how to do. They're not taking on the things that they don't know how to do in order to grow beyond the thing that they're doing. So Yeah, I would say actually that's kind of the thing. There's definitely going to be a person who, again, I brought up Kobe Bryant, the basketball player, and people would talk about his crazy work ethic. Same with Michael Jordan, and they had innate ability, just kind of built in. They had definitely the it factor, and they were mentally strong. And not only that, if I remember hearing a story about Kobe Bryant, and I can't remember the basketball player, but he came in. It was one of his teammates, and he came into the gym to practice, and he sees Kobe Bryant, and Kobe is just drenched in sweat. He's obviously been there for hours, and so he starts practicing, and Kobe looked like he was ready to stop and go take a shower, but he didn't, and he kept practicing until the guy that came in was like, okay, I'm done. And then he's like, okay, now I'm done. And so like the way that he was able to almost get into this other person's mind, like, I'm not going to quit before you do, even though I've been here for hours and you're just starting.
Yeah.
That's a definite like mental strength. Now, I do believe that there's going to be people that are going to get stuck in this kind of quicksand of doing the same thing over and over. You know, it's like one of the hardest things to draw is like the hands or the feet.
Sure.
Okay. And you can sit there and draw feet, and you will not get better. But if you, and the reason why you're not getting better is you're not like looking at anyone who can draw feet or render feet, and they say, this is how you do it.
Right.
This is how you could learn how to get better. If they're not willing to, get their ego out of the way and learn something that they don't know how to do, then they're going to continue drawing a foot the same way. And then they're going to get frustrated, and they're going to say something like, I just can't draw feet.
Sure.
Which isn't necessarily true. They could, but it's going to take a mental fortitude to learn the thing that you're uncomfortable with and get out of your comfort zone so that you can grow as an artist.
Right.
So that's where I it's not like I'm super disagreeing with you. I just
Right.
I definitely feel like some people, it's very easy, and it's almost like a default to point the finger at something else besides yourself.
Right.
And explain that's the reason. This thing over here, or this person, or these set of circumstances are the reason why I can't grow or get better. And that's really on the artists themselves.
Sure. Yeah, and I definitely agree with you. I definitely think that because sometimes a good amount of it does come down to your mental state and your self-image and what you perceive as possible and what is not. And all that stuff, the unfortunate reality, though, I feel too, is that, for there to be winners, there have to be losers.
There is,
and that's just the sad reality of life.
I do agree, and again, that's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
I'm trying to remember the statement. I can't remember who said it, but it went something like, "You will never be able to grow beyond your vision of yourself."
Sure, and I agree with that.
And that's again, it's you. And I can just, as an artist myself, the reason I'm actually getting a little bit of chills thinking about this, because sometimes we'll be talking about things here on the podcast, and I'll be giving my 2 cents on it, and then I'm like, oh God, I'm doing that. So no one's perfect.
Oh, sure.
And it's kind of like the feeling of, and anyone that's creative in anything will be able to recognize this feeling. And that's the feeling of you're putting a ton of effort into what you do, and you're your own worst critic. So if you ever get to a point where you're like, man, I'm feeling pretty good about myself, I'm doing pretty well, and then you will be exposed to someone else who's doing the same thing as you, and you look at it and your jaw hits the floor, and you just go, oh my God, I want to quit,
right?
Because it's so good, and like tattooing. I've tattooed for 20 years, and I've seen artists, and they're like, yeah, I've been tattooing for 5. And I'm like, what? Oh my God, it's so good.
Right.
A lot of
Yeah,
times
yeah.
they have, a good mentor, someone that can teach them the tricks of the trade, so to speak. So that's definitely going to advance their talent at a greater speed than just doing it by yourself in a vacuum and trying to learn by yourself. Nowadays, again, we were talking about YouTube
Right.
earlier. There is so much information out there for anyone who wants to learn anything or get better at the thing that they already are doing and they enjoy. There's so much resources that you can reach out to with a couple of clicks.
Yeah.
That can elevate what you're doing to the next level. And, don't take that for granted. I'd say revel in that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have to come to the realization that I am an individual. I'm me.
Yeah.
So I can see someone else that's doing something and it's incredible, and I can aspire to get to that level, but it's always going to be me who's doing it. So it's always going to be different. One of the things actually as a tattoo artist that I see a lot of these days, and I see it in other things. I see it in, rap music and some of the popular music that's out today, as well as tattooing, where you see a style that does not stand out. It's a lot. There's right now, fine line tattooing is all the rage. And it seems like a lot of the younger or the people that are, don't have as much experience, only got a couple of years under their experience, they're doing that exclusively. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. Like, you're able to do this and make money at it. But if I see that style of tattoo on someone, I have no idea who did it.
Right.
Because it's one of many people doing the exact same thing. Same with rap. When I was growing up in the 80s and rap was really blowing up, and hip hop and all that, it was a crime to sound like someone else. Mm-hmm. They would be like, you're biting so-and-so's style, and that's messed up and stuff like that. And nowadays everyone tries to sound the same, so you got to find your own voice in anything.
Sure.
And that's one of the things that's going to make you stand out, as opposed to trying to just emulate someone else and, do derivative work. That's not gonna, I mean, one of my favorite artists is Jean-Michel Basquiat. And I've just on Instagram, I ended up unfollowing them, but there's been a couple artists where it's like, they're literally trying to just recreate his style. Right. Which is cool because I like his style.
Right.
But then I'm like, well, you're reveling in your artistry, but you're just recreating someone else's work.
Yeah.
So how is, to me, I couldn't really pat myself on the back if I am painting just like Rembrandt, even though that's awesome, but it's not me. I'm redoing what someone already did.
Right.
I'm not bringing anything new to the table.
It's not progressive
No.
In any way. Like, you're not progressing as an artist. And that's the thing. There's a lot of people where it's like, that's where they get stuck. They and in fact, here's the thing too. Like, it's not uncommon for other artists to like emulate other artists to learn how to do something better and get better as an artist. But eventually there's a point where you stagnate. And once you're stagnating and you're not seeing any more progression, that's very tricky. And that's when you have to really think, okay, what can I do to truly be a unique flower, so to speak, in this world? And, and that's the thing. Some people will just never progress past that point, and they'll just stay in that space. And in fact, I kind of wanted to mention this while we were talking, because, like, in fact, we even kind of talked about this on the podcast before. Like, how do you know when you're on the right path, and how do you know when you're not on the right path? And the thing is, sometimes when people will do stuff like illustration or painting or music or whatever, there comes a point, I feel, where you might have liked it initially to learn how to do it, but then there's a point where you stop feeling the magic, so to speak. You don't feel it in your soul. Like it's just something about it's just not working. And and there's definitely some people out there. In fact, this is why I said like for every winner there has to be a loser. And the reality is that there's definitely a good amount of people where they think they want it, and they might try it for a while and it might feel right, but eventually there comes this point where you just hit that fucking wall and you're like, I don't know if this is for me. The moment you hit that point, reconsider your options.
Yeah, actually, coming to that point, as you were talking, I was thinking, it kind of falls in line with the YouTube video I was talking about don't fall into a Hendrix hole. Any artist, because talking about emulation, any artist, when they're learning, they're going to copy.
Yeah.
Okay. If you go to art school, they will eventually take you to the local museum. And you might even, if you're just visiting a museum, you might see young people sitting up against the wall, looking at a drawing or a painting and sitting there redrawing it. And I actually remember when I was in high school, I was very interested in like Olivia and Frank Frazetta and Boris Vallejo. These are my heroes, and I love their art, and I would copy it. And I remember people, because I had my group of kind of artistic friends, and getting people, you just copied. And, especially my buddy Dino, who I grew up with, he would break my balls about that all the time. And then I had another friend, we were all friends together, Nathan Christian, he can rest in peace. But I remember one day, this is after I'd like gotten married and, I ended up, so I didn't see everyone for a couple years. And then I came back. I remember I brought a portfolio and I showed it to him. And this stuff was my art.
Right.
And he's like, wow. He was really impressed. And he goes, you know why? He goes, you know how John and Dino and people would break your balls for copying? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, you ever realize I never did? And I'm like, I did. Actually, it was, I like you because you never gave me shit about that. He goes, yeah, but we're all musicians.
Right.
And they never thought about the fact that we're covering Black Sabbath and covering, Morbid Angel and covering punk songs. And so they were doing the same thing.
Most metal bands have covered Black Sabbath tunes at one point.
Yeah. And so, but I'd say this is the big, and this is a gem for you out there if you're finding yourself stuck. If you're copying, the longer you copy,
Mm-hmm.
the harder it becomes to find your own voice.
Yeah.
Because you'll get good. Again, that comfort zone can be quicksand. You can do something and it's good, but it's again, something that someone else has done. And so for you if you take a long time doing that and don't strike out ever doing your own thing, it becomes harder and harder. And it's way outside of your comfort zone, which as an artist of any sort, if you feel that you're good at what you're doing, but you're good because you've emulated others, when you go to try and do something yourself, it's not easy, which is a big, it'll punch you as far as your anxiety, because you're like, oh my God, I suck, because you're trying to do something new. So yeah, definitely, I think anyone and everyone that's a creative person, should do some copying and studying, other people that are doing or who have done what you want to do. But you have to eventually find your own voice, and you have to strike out and find your inner voice. Find the thing that's going to help you tell the stories you want to tell, not copying stories that someone else has already told. So just keep that in mind. It's always good to copy people that inspire you, but you eventually have to step away and start doing things that come directly from you.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, I think to start wrapping this up, You know, because the topic was like, is it possible for everyone to be a great artist or to even be an artist? And you know, I definitely think it's possible for people to be an artist and to be good, but for everyone, maybe not so much, or for other people, maybe not so much.
It's that way for everything.
It's for everything, and
people
usually,
people start businesses all the time.
Yeah,
90% of them don't work out.
Yeah, usually the best thing you can do is find out what works for you. And in fact, there was a clip that I talked to you about before the podcast started. And in fact, it's from the movie Ratatouille, because they're after the scene where in the film, which I would say spoilers, but it's not really spoilers at this point.
Everyone's seen it.
Everyone's seen it, or if you haven't seen it, watch the fucking film. It's really good. But the critic finally gets some food from Gusteau's to do his criticism of the restaurant, and of course, a fucking rat cooked him some ratatouille, and then the chef, you know, he's like, oh, or the critic loved it, and he's like, I want to meet the chef, and so the dude, the redheaded stepchild or whatever the fuck his name is, takes the chef out, quote unquote, and reveals to him that it's a rat, and so he goes back to his flat,
Mind blown.
Mind blown, and this is what he ended up saying, and it's one of my favorite quotes from the film.
A critic is easy. We risk very little, yet enjoy a position over those who offer up their work and themselves to our judgment. We thrive on negative criticism, which is fun to write and to read. But the bitter truth we critics must face is that in the grand scheme of things, the average piece of junk is probably more meaningful than our criticism designating it so. But there are times when a critic truly risks something, and that is in the discovery and defense of the new. The world is often unkind to new talent, new creations. The new needs friends. Last night I experienced something new. An extraordinary meal from a singularly unexpected source. To say that both the meal and its maker have challenged my preconceptions about fine cooking is a gross understatement. They have rocked me to my core. In the past, I have made no secret of my disdain for Chef Gusteau's famous motto, anyone can cook, but I realize only now do I truly understand what he meant. Not everyone can become a great artist, but a great artist can come from anywhere.
And with that, I think that's a perfect place to wrap it up.
Yes, indeed.
So, anyways, thank you guys for listening to the final podcast of the year.
Yep.
We're going to be taking a break for the Christmas / New Year's.
We're going to reevaluate for the new year.
Yeah.
We're gonna start actually filming these.
Yeah, we've been
And put
talking
'em up on YouTube.
Yeah, we've been talking about doing that. We need to kind of assess logistically how we're going to do that, what will work best. But yeah, we do have plans for the future for next year and so on and so forth. And yeah, it's going to be a busy year next year for sure. Or at least that's the plan, anyways.
And thanks to all our listeners for sitting down and giving us this chance to enlighten you and enlighten ourselves through this podcast. We really appreciate you, and we will see you next year. Have a great day. We're out.
All right, have a good one, guys. Peace.